Never go to the farm, Catherine. Promise me. Those words, spoken with a rare, almost urgent intensity, were among the very few demands my husband Joshua had ever made in our 24 years of marriage. And I had honored them, always. Even when curiosity tugged at me, even during those rare moments when he mentioned his childhood in Canada, on a property he clearly carried like a shadow. But now Joshua was gone. A sudden heart attack. No warning, no time to prepare. After 24 years of marriage, I found myself a widow at 52, with a distant, bitter daughter, and a hollow space in my chest where certainty used to live. Mrs. Mitchell? The voice of Joshua's attorney, Mr. Winters, pulled me back to reality. We sat in his wood-paneled office just 2 weeks after the funeral. Death reduced to paperwork, signatures, legal language. "There's one more item," he said, sliding a small box across the desk. Inside was an antique brass key, attached to a maple leaf keychain. Beneath it, a sealed envelope, my name written in Joshua's precise handwriting. "What is this?" I asked, turning the heavy key in my hand. "Your husband purchased a property in Alberta, Canada, 3 years ago," Mr. Winters explained. "Per his instructions, you were only to be informed after his passing. The deed has been transferred to your name. All taxes are paid for the next 5 years." "A property in Canada?" I whispered. Joshua had never mentioned it. "It's called Maple Creek Farm," he added. Apparently, it was his childhood home, though it changed hands several times before he repurchased it. The farm. The one place he had forbidden me to visit. The one subject that made his gentle face harden without explanation. "Mrs. Mitchell, there's something else," Mr. Winters said, lowering his voice. "The property has become quite valuable recently." "Valuable? It's a farm." "Yes, but significant oil deposits were discovered in the region about 18 months ago. Your husband declined multiple offers from energy companies." My thoughts spiraled. Joshua had hidden everything: the property, the money, the opportunity. Why? With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope. "My dearest Catherine, if you're reading this, then I've left you too soon. I'm sorry. There's so much I should have told you, but couldn't bring myself to face. The farm is yours now. I've spent the last 3 years transforming it from the broken place of my childhood into something beautiful, something worthy of you. I know I made you promise never to go there. I'm releasing you from that promise. In fact, I'm asking you to go, just once. On the main house desk, you'll find a laptop. The password is the date we met, followed by your maiden name. I love you, Kat, more than you'll ever know. Joshua." Tears blurred my vision as I pressed the letter to my chest. Even in death, he was still surprising me. "I need to see this place," I said. Mr. Winters nodded. "Of course, but you should know Joshua's brothers have contested the will. They claim he wasn't mentally competent when he repurchased the property." "That's absurd," I snapped. "Nevertheless, the legal challenge is in motion, and given the oil discovery, things may get complicated." I slipped the key into my pocket. "I'm going to Canada. Today." 48 hours later, I stood before towering wooden gates marked Maple Creek Farm. Beyond them stretched rolling hills, golden maple trees, and in the distance, a large, beautifully restored farmhouse. This wasn't a broken-down childhood memory. This was an estate. The key turned smoothly. As I drove up the winding gravel path, my heart pounded. What had Joshua built here? What part of himself had he hidden? The house was breathtaking. Wide porch, tall windows, warm light spilling from within. Nothing about it suggested pain, only care, attention, love. My hands trembled as I unlocked the door. It creaked open, and I stepped into my husband's secret world. What I saw made me gasp. Not the architecture, the horses, everywhere. Paintings of them in motion, sculptures capturing their strength, photographs of magnificent breeds lining the walls. My passion, the one thing I had loved my entire life. Joshua had turned this house into a tribute to me, and there, on the desk, a silver laptop, a single red rose resting across it. Before I could move, the crunch of tires shattered the silence. A black SUV pulled into the driveway. 3 men stepped out, tall, dark-haired, hard expressions. The Mitchell brothers, and they weren't here to welcome me. I locked the door. A sharp knock followed. "Mrs. Mitchell, we know you're in there. We should talk." I stayed silent. "Catherine," the voice continued, "I'm Robert Mitchell, Joshua's brother." Of course. Not here for Joshua, not here for me, here for the land. Ignoring them, I crossed the room, opened the laptop, and entered the password. A folder appeared. For Catherine. Inside, hundreds of video files, dated, one for every day for an entire year. My breath caught when I clicked the first. Joshua appeared on screen, healthy, smiling, alive. "Hello, Kat." My heart broke. "I've made a video for every day of your first year without me," he said gently. "1 year of keeping you company and explaining everything I should have told you." I sank into the chair. 3 years ago," he continued, "I was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy." The room spun. "They gave me 2 to 5 years. He never told me." "I didn't want pity," he said softly. "I didn't want our last years overshadowed by death. I wanted to live fully with you." Tears streamed down my face. "I know you're angry," he said. "You have every right to be." Outside, the brothers paced, but I couldn't hear them anymore. "When I got my diagnosis," Joshua continued, "I decided to build something for you, something meaningful." He smiled. "You always dreamed of having land, horses." My chest tightened. "So I went back to the one place I swore I'd never return, the farm. I bought it from our father before he died, legally, completely." Everything clicked. "My brothers don't know," he said. "They thought they'd inherit it someday." Outside, one of them held up papers, a court order. "They'll come for it," Joshua warned. My grip tightened on the desk. "In the bottom drawer," he said, "there's a blue folder, every document you need." Then he softened. "But Kat, whether you keep it or sell it, that's your choice." A pause. "In the stables, there are 6 horses." My breath caught. "My last gift to you." The video ended. Silence. Then, "RCMP, open the door." I grabbed the folder. My phone rang. "Mom," Jenna snapped, "why didn't you tell me about the farm, about the oil? His brothers called me, offering a deal." Of course they had. "Don't sign anything," I said firmly. "Don't trust them. This is about money." "No," I cut in. "This is about your father." A pause. "Okay." I opened the door. A young officer stood there. Behind him, the brothers, confident, certain. I smiled calmly. "Before anything," I said, handing the folder, "you should read these." Minutes later, everything changed. "These documents are valid," the officer said. "The property belongs to Mrs. Mitchell." The brothers' confidence cracked. "This isn't over," Robert snapped. "I know," I replied evenly. They left, but the look in their eyes said everything. This was just the beginning. That night I stayed, in our farmhouse. At dawn I explored the stables. 6 horses. Magnificent. "Good morning, ma'am," I turned. An older man approached. "I'm Ellis, your husband hired me." Catherine Mitchell, I said. He smiled softly. He spoke about you often. Of course he did. The Black Frisian, he nodded, towards a powerful stallion. Your husband searched months for him. My heart clenched. He remembered a painting you loved. 20 years ago. And he remembered. Did he ever mention his health? I asked quietly. Ellis hesitated. And in that silence, I knew.
Not directly, but over the last 6 months, he had pushed harder than ever. Longer hours, more upgrades, more additions to the property. Like a man racing against a clock only he could hear ticking. The realization stung, but it also explained everything. The urgency I had sensed in Joshua during those final months. I had blamed work stress, never imagining he was building all of this while quietly preparing for the end. His brothers were here yesterday, I said, watching Ellis closely. His expression hardened instantly. They've been circling ever since oil was discovered on neighboring land. Suddenly, they're very interested in a farm they ignored for decades. What can you tell me about them? Ellis secured the stall door before answering. Robert's the oldest, runs some investment firm in Toronto. Always acted like acknowledging Joshua was a favor. Alan's the middle one, a lawyer, smooth, calculated. And David, the youngest, followed Robert into finance, always in his shadow. And their relationship with Joshua. Ellis let out a dry breath. Strained doesn't even begin to cover it. From what I gathered, they tormented him as a kid. City boys who came out here reluctantly looked down on him for staying behind to help his father. He shook his head. When Joshua came back to buy the property, they mocked him, said he was wasting money on worthless land, right up until the Petersons struck oil 2 properties over. It all aligned. The fragments Joshua had shared over the years, the difficult childhood, his escape to the United States, his silence whenever his family came up. They'll be back, I murmured. Ellis nodded grimly. Count on it. But Mr. Mitchell, he prepared for that. He was always 3 steps ahead. Back inside, I forced myself to eat something before opening the laptop for the next video. Joshua appeared on screen, seated in what I now recognized as the farm's library. Good morning, Kat, he said softly. I hope you slept well in our new home. That crooked smile, it hit me like a physical ache. Today, he continued, I want to show you something special. The camera moved as he carried it down a hallway I hadn't explored yet, stopping at a plain, locked door. This room is for you alone. The key is in the top drawer of the bedside table, the antique silver one with the horse engraving. I paused the video. Moments later, I found the key exactly where he said. Following his path, I reached the door at the end of the east wing. The lock turned smoothly. I opened it and gasped. A fully equipped art studio flooded with perfect northern light stretched before me. Floor-to-ceiling windows, easels, canvases, paints, brushes, everything, arranged with quiet, deliberate care. I hadn't painted in 20 years, not since college. Life had taken over. Teaching, supporting Joshua, raising Jenna. Someday had slowly faded into something distant, something I no longer allowed myself to want. Joshua's voice pulled me back. You gave up so much for us, Kat. Your painting was the first sacrifice. You never complained, but I never forgot. I always promised myself I'd give it back to you. Tears blurred my vision. The light, the supplies, the space. Perfect. There's one more thing, he said gently. Check the cabinet beneath the window seat. I crossed the room slowly, opened it. Inside, a flat archival box. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Then I dropped to my knees. My paintings, all of them, dozens of pieces I thought were lost forever, preserved, protected, kept safe for 2 decades. On top lay one I recognized instantly, my final college project. A self-portrait of a young woman looking forward, eyes filled with possibility. Joshua had kept it. Beside it, a note in his handwriting. She's still in there, Kat. The woman who painted with passion and vision. I've given you the space, the rest is up to you. I pressed the note to my chest. He had seen me, truly seen me, in ways I hadn't allowed myself to be seen in years. The sound of tires on gravel shattered the moment. I rushed to the window. 2 cars, the black SUV and a silver Mercedes. Jenna. And by the way she greeted the Mitchell brothers, smiling, confident, it was clear they'd already gotten to her. My phone buzzed. Jenna. Arrived with Uncle Robert. Coming in now. We need to talk. Uncle Robert. One day and already family. I locked the studio, tucked Joshua's note into my pocket, and went to meet them. They didn't knock. Jenna walked in first. The brothers followed like wolves behind her. Mom. She hugged me briefly, then pulled back, eyes scanning the house. This place is incredible. Why didn't Dad ever tell us? Before I could answer, Robert stepped forward. Catherine, I think we got off on the wrong foot yesterday. His tone was warm. His eyes were not. Jenna jumped in. They called this morning with a really reasonable proposal. I thought I should hear them out. Jenna, I said calmly, we agreed you wouldn't engage with them yet. They're my family too, she shot back. Only reason we didn't know them is because Dad kept them from us. Doesn't that seem strange? What else was he hiding? The question hit harder than she knew, but I held steady. Your father had his reasons. Robert waved it off. Ancient history. What matters now is moving forward together. Jenna nodded. He explained everything. The farm was always meant to stay in the family. And the oil? I asked quietly. Alan stepped forward, opening his portfolio. We've prepared a fair settlement. 1/3 to you, Catherine, 1/3 to Jenna, 1/3 split between us. Robert smiled. Everyone wins. Jenna looked at me eagerly. It makes sense, Mom. We don't need all this. We could walk away with millions. This property was left to me, I said firmly. Robert's expression cooled. Out of confusion, Joshua wasn't thinking clearly. A flash of anger arose in me. He was perfectly clear. Then why all the secrecy? David asked softly. I thought of the videos, the studio, the planning. Nothing about it was irrational. Mom, Jenna said gently, this just makes sense. Before I could respond, the door opened. Ellis stepped in. Everything all right? Robert turned sharply. This is a family matter. Ellis is my employee, I said. He stays. All staff appointments are under review, Alan added coldly. That was enough. It's time for you to leave. They hesitated. Then Robert's mask slipped. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Is that a threat? A reality check. Silence. Then I said quietly, my husband knew exactly what he was doing. Now leave. Jenna hesitated, then chose them. I'll go with them for now. The words landed like a blow, and just like that, they were gone. Ellis waited until the cars disappeared. Mrs. Mitchell, there's something you need to see. Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. What is it? The truth about this property, and what your husband was really hiding. The barn looked ordinary, deliberately so. Ellis unlocked it, moved hay bales aside, revealed a trapdoor, a hidden staircase, below it a tunnel, at the end a room, concrete walls, maps, files, evidence. Welcome, Ellis said quietly, to Joshua's war room. I stared at the maps, red markings everywhere, oil deposits, but everyone's drilling on the east side. Ellis shook his head. That's what they think. He pointed west. The biggest deposit is here, under land they believe is worthless. My breath caught. And that's not all. He handed me a thick folder. Inside, financial records, emails, testimonies, proof. Everything they've gotten, Ellis said quietly. Illegal. Enough to destroy them. I looked up, stunned. He built all this for me? Ellis nodded. He knew they'd come. A pause. He wanted you to be ready. I swallowed hard. They've already gotten to Jenna. Ellis's voice softened. She lost her father. Now they're offering her a connection to him. That's powerful.
He was right, painfully right. I looked around the war room, at the strategy, the foresight, the love hidden in every detail. Then I asked the only question that mattered. What do I do now? Ellis met my eyes. That depends on what you're willing to fight for.
You could sell everything, the property, the oil rights, the entire estate, and walk away wealthy, but at the cost of losing your daughter forever. You could fight the brothers in court, use this leverage to win, but deepen wounds that may never heal. Or, I paused, my gaze drifting across the war room. Or what? Ellis asked quietly. Or I do what Joshua always did, I said, my voice steadying. Think 3 steps ahead and choose the path no one sees coming. My eyes settled on a photograph resting on the desk. I picked it up slowly. Joshua, young, carefree, stood beside a magnificent chestnut horse, his face glowing with a joy I had rarely seen in the man I married. That's Phoenix, Ellis said softly, your husband's horse when he was a boy. From what he told me, it was the only bright thing in his childhood here. His brother sold the horse while Joshua was away at school, just to hurt him. Something clicked. Joshua's unwavering support for my love of horses, the 6 beautiful animals in the stable, it had never been random. It was reclamation, a quiet, deeply personal act of defiance against what had been stolen from him. I set the photograph down, a plan already forming. Ellis, does the laptop with Joshua's videos work down here? Yes, secure Wi-Fi throughout the property. He made sure of it. Good, I said. I need to watch several videos, now. Then I need you to arrange 3 meetings. With whom? First, my daughter, alone, away from her uncles. Second, my attorney. And third, I glanced at the wall filled with evidence, the oil company representatives who've been making offers. For the first time, Ellis smiled. You're planning something your husband would approve of. I shook my head slightly. I'm planning something worthy of the man who loved me enough to prepare all this. His expression softened. Whatever you need. Your husband saved my life once, gave me a second chance when no one else would. I owe him everything, and that means I owe you. As we sealed the bunker and stepped back into the house, something inside me shifted. The grief was still there, but it was no longer paralyzing. Joshua hadn't just left me behind, he had armed me. Over the next 48 hours, I barely slept. I watched hours of Joshua's recordings, absorbing every detail of his strategy. They'll try to divide you, he said in one video. Robert will charm, Alan will threaten, David will observe, and they'll target Jenna, she's the easiest way in. In another, he walked across the barren western land. This looks worthless, that's why it's valuable. No one looks closely at what appears empty. By the time dawn broke, my plan was complete. I met Jenna at a small cafe 20 minutes from the farm, neutral ground. She arrived late, guarded. I don't have long. Uncle Robert is taking me to meet the family attorney. Uncle Robert, I repeated calmly. You've grown close, quickly. She flushed. They've been kind, more than I can say for you. I took a slow sip of coffee. Do you remember your art history professor, the one who talked about perspective? She frowned. What does that have to do with anything? You've only seen their perspective, I said gently. I'm asking you to consider your father's. Dad's gone, she snapped, and apparently didn't trust us with anything. I slid the tablet across the table. He did leave something, for both of us. Her expression shifted. What's that? Videos. Messages. Her hands trembled slightly as she pressed play. Joshua appeared on screen, alive, warm, familiar. Hello, my brilliant girl, he said. Tears filled Jenna's eyes almost instantly. I should have told you I was sick, but I wanted our time to feel normal. I hope someday you'll forgive me. Then his tone changed. There's something about my brothers you need to know.
He told her everything: the fraud, the betrayal, the threats that forced him to leave and start over. Silence filled the cafe when the video ended. Jenna sat frozen, tears streaming. "He was protecting us," she whispered. "Yes," I said softly. She wiped her face, anger rising. "They lied to me." "Not about everything," I said. "The land is valuable, but they hid the truth about the western section and the oil beneath it." Her eyes widened. "They're trying to cheat us." "Us?" I asked. She met my gaze. "I never left your side. I just wanted to feel closer to him." I reached for her hand. "I understand." She straightened. "What's the plan?" I smiled. "First, we meet my attorney. Then tomorrow, we meet the oil company." "Why?" "Because knowledge is leverage, and right now, we know more than they do." For the first time, she laughed. "Dad always said you were the smartest person he knew." "Did he?" "All the time. He also said underestimating you would be the biggest mistake anyone could make." 3 days later, the Mitchell brothers arrived, exactly at 10 a.m. Confident, certain. They believed they had already won. They had no idea they were walking into a trap. I stood at the head of the dining table as they entered, dressed not as a grieving widow, but something far more dangerous. Prepared. "Before we begin," I said, picking up a remote, "I'd like to discuss your proposal." A screen descended from the ceiling. A full map of the property appeared. "All 2,200 acres," I said calmly, "not just the 800 you mentioned." Alan shifted. "The western land is worthless." "Is it?" I smiled. The map updated, revealing the oil deposits. Silence. Then, "These surveys are unreliable," Robert began. "They're verified," came a new voice. The door opened, and everything changed.
Mitchell, an offer that acknowledged both the challenges and the extraordinary potential of the property. As the meeting unfolded, shifting from the Mitchell brothers' calculated takeover into my carefully orchestrated counteroffensive, I caught Jenna's eye across the table. Her faint smile said everything: pride, vindication, and a quiet, bittersweet understanding that Joshua had prepared us for this moment, even from beyond the grave. 2 hours later, when the Mitchell brothers finally left, they were defeated, exposed, and legally bound by the settlement agreement my attorney had prepared well in advance. The future of Maple Creek Farm was no longer uncertain. It had been secured exactly as Joshua intended. Not divided among greedy relatives, not sold to the highest bidder, but preserved, intact, as a legacy for the family he had chosen and loved, for Jenna and for me. As their vehicles disappeared down the long driveway, Ellis stepped quietly to my side. "Your husband would be proud," he said. "You outmaneuvered them exactly as he believed you would." I watched the dust settle, a complex wave of emotion washing over me, triumph laced with grief, strength rising from a place of vulnerability I hadn't known I possessed. "We're not finished yet," I replied softly, thinking of the videos still waiting on Joshua's laptop and the future stretching ahead of us. This had only been the first battle, but it was one we had decisively won, using the tools Joshua had meticulously prepared, and the strength he had always seen in me, even when I couldn't see it in myself. The weeks that followed passed in a blur of purpose and precision. Legal documents finalized the settlement. Meetings with Western Plains Energy shaped a mutually beneficial extraction plan. And slowly, carefully, we began cataloging everything Joshua had built at Maple Creek Farm. Jenna stayed with me through it all. Her initial resentment toward her father's secrets gradually transformed into something deeper: respect, even gratitude for his foresight. Every morning, we watched one of his recorded videos together. Each message felt like a bridge across time, a quiet continuation of his presence in our lives. "Did you have any idea," Jenna asked one evening as we sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the western hills,
the same hills that now held unimaginable wealth beneath their surface. Any suspicion at all that Dad was sick or planning all this? I thought carefully, searching through memories that now felt incomplete. There were signs, I admitted, small ones that only make sense now. I paused, reflecting. He insisted on updating our wills 3 years ago. He started taking photos of ordinary moments, like he was trying to preserve them, and sometimes he'd just look at us, as if he were memorizing our faces. Jenna gave a soft, sad smile. I thought he was just going through some kind of midlife awakening. In a way, he was, I said quietly, just not for the reasons we thought. I took a sip of tea, the realization still settling. The biggest change was how he stopped postponing things. Your father was always a someday person. Someday we'd travel. Someday he'd learn something new. Someday we'd renovate the house. I shook my head. Then suddenly, he stopped waiting. He started doing. Like buying this place, Jenna said. Exactly, creating something lasting. At the time, I had believed it was financial confidence. Now I understood the truth. He wasn't planning for the future. He was racing against time. When I presented my conditions to Western Plains Energy, their reaction was immediate and stunned. Rather than selling the mineral rights outright, I insisted on a structured agreement, environmental protection, sustainable extraction methods, and a dedicated restoration trust for the land once the oil was gone. These terms are highly unusual, their lead negotiator said. Then perhaps the industry needs more unusual terms, I replied calmly. The oil has been there for millions of years. It can wait a little longer, until we do this responsibly. To my surprise, their CEO, Thomas Reeves, wasn't resistant. He was intrigued. Your husband told me about you. He said you'd insist on doing this right. Another piece of Joshua's unseen preparation revealed itself. Even in his absence, he was still opening doors. 1 month later, I stood in the art studio Joshua had built for me. Sunlight streamed through the tall north-facing windows, illuminating a blank canvas waiting on the easel. After decades away, I had picked up a brush again. At first, hesitantly, then with growing confidence. Outside, in the paddock, Midnight, the magnificent Frisian stallion Joshua had chosen, moved with quiet power. Ellis had begun teaching me to ride again. Each lesson reminded me how much of myself I had set aside over the years, and how much still remained. Mom, Jenna stood in the doorway, holding a laptop. Today's video is different. I think you should watch this one alone. Curious, I set down my brush. Different how? She said gently, it's labeled Month 2, Day 15, title, When Catherine Starts Painting Again. I froze. He knew, she added softly. He knew you'd come back to this. Alone in the studio, surrounded by a life I was rediscovering, I pressed play. Joshua appeared on the screen, sitting in this very room long before it had been completed. Hello, my love, he said warmly. If you're watching this, you've found your way back. Tears filled my eyes as I touched the screen. I've been thinking about legacy, he continued. Most people believe it's about wealth or children or accomplishments, but there's another kind. He paused. The legacy of enabling possibility in the people we love. He gestured to the unfinished space around him. This studio, this life, it's not the legacy, it's the opportunity. I glanced at my painting of Midnight, still unfinished, yet alive with meaning. I've built everything to give you freedom, he said. But what you create with that freedom, that's your legacy, not mine. He leaned closer. The farm, the horses, the wealth, they're just tools. The real inheritance is possibility. I paused the video, overwhelmed. He had seen me more clearly than I had ever seen myself. When I resumed it, his voice softened. There's one more thing, he said. In the storage closet behind this room, there's a large canvas. When you're ready, truly ready, I hope you'll create something for it. Something that captures not just what you see, but what you feel. When the video ended, I sat still for a long time. Then, driven by something deeper than thought, I found the canvas. It was enormous, perfect, waiting. Weeks passed as autumn painted the land in fire and gold. I sketched endlessly, trying to capture the soul of Maple Creek Farm. Nothing felt right, until one morning, watching Jenna ride midnight across the eastern meadow, something clicked. The final painting became something more than a landscape. It was time layered on canvas, the present farm and sharp detail, the past beneath it, its abandoned state, Joshua's childhood, the ancient land itself. And through it all, two riders, a man and a woman, timeless, endless, and behind them, barely visible, a third figure, a young woman, moving forward. "It's him, isn't it?" Jenna whispered when it was finished. "And you, and me." "Legacy," I said simply. "Not what's left behind, but what continues." Winter arrived with breathtaking intensity. Snow blanketed the land, ice traced patterns on the windows, smoke curled into the cold Alberta sky. I stayed. This place was no longer just Joshua's past. It had become my future. 6 months passed. The Mitchell brothers remained silent, too silent, until the call came. "Mom," Jenna's voice was tight, "I just had a visit from Uncle David." A chill ran through me. He was asking questions about the farm, about you, about everything. "This wasn't casual," she said quietly. "I think they're planning something." Within hours, I alerted Ellis. Security tightened, surveillance activated. That night, I found myself in the hidden bunker beneath the barn, searching, because if Joshua had prepared us for everything else, he had prepared for this too. In the lowest drawer, I found a folder, labeled in his precise handwriting, "If they return." Inside, contingency plans, legal strategies, contacts with the authorities, and one more thing, a sealed letter addressed to Robert Mitchell. Attached was a note, "Last resort." The next morning, Ellis knocked on my door. "They're here," he said grimly. "All 3 brothers." From the window, I saw the vehicles waiting at the gate. This wasn't over, not even close. I slipped the letter into my pocket and reached for one final piece Joshua had left me, a small digital recorder hidden inside a brooch. Because this time, I would be ready.
Whatever the Mitchell brothers wanted, I intended to have a record of every word. When the doorbell rang, I was already waiting in the great room, seated calmly in the armchair facing the entryway. The recorder was discreetly pinned to my sweater, and Joshua's letter rested securely in my pocket. Ellis answered the door with practiced professionalism, ushering in our unwelcome visitors. Robert entered first. He looked noticeably thinner than the last time I had seen him, his complexion gray beneath an artificial tan. Alan and David followed, their expressions carefully neutral. 2 strangers came in behind them, one carrying a medical bag, clearly a physician, the other holding a leather portfolio that marked him as legal counsel. "Catherine," Robert said with a nod. His voice lacked its usual authority. "Thank you for seeing us without an appointment." "Family always seems to arrive unexpectedly," I replied evenly. "Please, sit. Ellis, coffee for our guests." As they settled onto the sofas opposite me, I observed the tension in their posture. Alan kept glancing at Robert with poorly concealed concern. Whatever had brought them here, it centered on him. "I'll be direct," Robert began once Ellis left the room. "I've been diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the same condition that took Joshua. It runs in the family." So Jenna had been right. I kept my expression neutral. "My condition is advanced, 6 months without intervention, possibly years with the right treatment." He gestured toward the man beside him. "This is Dr. Harmon, my cardiologist, and Mr. Pearson, my attorney." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said carefully, "but I don't see what this has to do with Maple Creek Farm." Robert hesitated, then continued. "I need a heart transplant, but there's a complication. Our family has a rare blood type and unusual tissue markers. Finding a compatible donor is extremely difficult." A slow, cold realization began to form. Dr. Harmon spoke next. "Based on medical records, your late husband would have been a perfect match, and given the genetic factors, there's a strong probability your daughter may also be compatible." The audacity hit like a physical blow. I said, "You want my daughter tested as a potential donor?" My voice steady, ensuring every word was captured. "Just preliminary blood work," Alan interjected smoothly. "Nothing invasive." "And if she's a match?" Robert didn't hesitate. "We would hope she might consider becoming a living donor, a partial liver transplant. The liver regenerates. It's low risk." I stared at them in disbelief. After everything they had done, they were asking for this? "Let me understand," I said slowly. "You tried to take this property, you tried to manipulate my daughter, and now you're asking her to undergo surgery to save your life." Robert shifted uncomfortably. "We're still family, Catherine." "Family?" I echoed softly. Then I reached into my pocket and withdrew the letter. "Joshua anticipated this," I said. Robert's eyes locked onto the envelope instantly. "He wrote to thee?" "He prepared for every possibility," I replied, "including this one." Silence fell across the room. "Before I give you this," I continued, "I want clarity. You're asking my daughter, the same one you deceived, to risk her health for you." "It sounds worse the way you say it," Alan muttered thickly. "But it's accurate." I paused. "Why not each other?" I asked, turning to the brothers. "Siblings are often better matches." Dr. Harmon cleared his throat. "They've both been tested. Neither is compatible." "And no other family?" A flicker of tension passed between them. "No," Robert said firmly. I studied him for a moment, then handed over the letter. "Read it." Robert opened it with trembling hands. As his eyes scanned the page, his expression shifted. Shock, disbelief, something deeper. The color drained from his face. "Robert?" Alan leaned forward. No response. When Robert finally looked up, he seemed like a different man. "How long have you known?" he asked hoarsely. "I haven't," I replied calmly. "Only that Joshua said you would need this." Alan took the letter next. David leaned in to read. Their reactions mirrored Robert's, shock turning to something like horror. "This isn't possible," Alan whispered. "Oh, it is," Robert said bitterly. "Father lied about everything." I leaned forward slightly. "Perhaps someone would like to explain?" Robert swallowed hard. "Joshua wasn't our half-brother. He was our full brother." I frowned. "That makes no sense." "It does," Alan said slowly. "Our mother didn't die giving birth to him. She left." The room went still. "She couldn't endure our father's abuse, so he erased her, told us she died." "And Joshua discovered more," David said quietly. "Our father had another family, a second life, in Saskatoon." I felt the pieces fall into place. "Other children," I said. "Two," Robert confirmed, "a brother and a sister, in their 40s. "And they share your genetic markers?" "Yes." "And they don't know about you?" "No." Silence. "Joshua knew, all along. And he kept that information," I said softly, "in case something like this happened." Robert nodded. The irony was staggering. They had come to my daughter while their own siblings, perfect matches, lived unknown to them. "There's more," David added. "Joshua said this discovery is what made him walk away completely. He wanted something different, something honest." My throat tightened. That was Joshua. Even now, teaching. "So," I said finally, "you have options." "They're strangers," Robert protested weakly. "And whose fault is that?" No one answered. Dr. Harmon stepped in. "With respect, time is critical." I looked at Robert, at the fear beneath his pride.
"The contact information, is it there?" He nodded. "Then start there," I told him, "not with entitlement, but with truth." I held his gaze. "And if they refuse, then Jenna decides, freely, without pressure." Silence settled again. Then Robert stood. "We'll go," he said quietly. That evening, as snow drifted across Maple Creek Farm, I opened Joshua's video for the day. His face appeared, warm, familiar. "Hello, my love. If I've calculated correctly, today is the day my brothers come asking for help." I exhaled slowly. Of course he knew. "If they've approached you, then you've given them the letter." He smiled gently. "I thought about contacting those siblings many times, but they had lives, families. I didn't know if I had the right to disrupt that life." He leaned closer. "The truth is, Kat, family isn't about blood. It's about choice." My eyes filled. "I chose you and Jenna." His voice softened. "And I hope anyone they ask is given that same choice, freely." When the video ended, I sat in silence. The Mitchell brothers had come seeking control. Instead, they found truth. Joshua had turned his past into something meaningful, something clean. Maple Creek Farm was no longer a place of secrets. It was a place of freedom, of love, of legacy, chosen, not inherited. Spring would come again, the horses would run, the land would thrive, and I would continue forward, stronger than before, not bound by the past, but shaped by it. "Until tomorrow, my love," Joshua's voice echoed. "Until tomorrow," I whispered, and this time I believed in what came next.